The Galactic Empire had seen countless wars. Across 1,000 systems, banners of conquest flew over worlds stripped bare, their skies darkened by the silhouettes of disciplined fleets. In the Empire's memory, no opponent had ever been worth more than a chapter in the history archives. But in the classified records, hidden far from public eyes, there existed data points the High Command did not speak of openly. Engagement logs where 2 human soldiers had stood against entire brigades, where victory had been reduced to a calculation of minutes they could hold a line, and where their names had been buried beneath layers of encryption. The soldiers were a pair, bonded not by military assignment, but by shared history, training, and a marriage that had outlasted 3 separate wars. Together, they were an anomaly in the Empire's statistics. The models predicted they should have retired long ago, and perhaps they had tried for a time, but the tactical logs told a different story. Kill ratios too high to be luck, strategic decisions made without the data feeds the Empire relied on, and an uncanny ability to turn hopeless scenarios into enemy routes. They had fought for humanity when the species was still struggling to earn its place in the galactic order. Now, with peace a fragile and temporary thing, they lived on a remote world far from the Empire's central lanes. In the dimly lit chamber of the Imperial Strategic Command, the hollow projection of their combat record hovered in the air. A thin line of numbers scrolled past, confirmed kills, destroyed assets, sabotage operations, ships downed. Every figure told the same truth. If left unchecked, the couple could destabilize entire sectors. The admirals argued in clipped voices, some suggesting propaganda to discredit them, others calling for an immediate strike before their legend grew again. The decision crystallized quickly. Neutralization orders were drafted, marked with the rare, high-priority elimination tag. The Empire was not in the business of letting legends live. The outpost where they lived was quiet, built low into the stone cliffs overlooking a barren plain. Atmospheric winds howled at the edges of the settlement, carrying fine dust that coated every surface. It was the kind of place that never saw visitors without reason. The couple maintained it themselves. Structural integrity checks, power routing, basic agriculture. They did not seek contact, though the outpost comm array remained operational, tuned to encrypted channels from decades past. Sensors along the perimeter registered an anomaly in the early hours. The alerts came without panic. Silent signals routed to a control panel deep underground. No unshielded ship should have been able to approach without notice, but this one had. They didn't react with fear or confusion. The readings were logged, analyzed, and filed alongside dozens of similar patterns. Still, the man adjusted the array's focus, and the woman checked the emergency caches. Old habits remained, even after years of quiet. The first move came as a whisper in the static of the comm net. No official transmission, no warning. The Empire's infiltration unit descended in silence, camouflaged by atmospheric scatter. They moved through barren plain in near-perfect formation, their armor tuned to absorb the thermal signature of the terrain. This was no diplomatic contact. The soldiers who advanced were trained for precision kills, not occupation. They didn't make it far. Motion-triggered fields activated without fanfare. Monofilament traps that sliced through composite plating, sudden bursts of directed sound that ruptured balance systems, micro-drones darting out from the cliffside like a swarm of insects. The intruders fell without a single shot fired from the couple themselves. Those who remained attempted to scatter, but the ground betrayed them. Charges buried months earlier detonated in a sequence that left nothing moving on the plain. The Empire received the data from their unit's telemetry, or at least what was left of it. No survivors. Loss of signal across all channels. For the first time in years, the kill count associated with the couple rose again, and in the Empire's war rooms, silence held for a moment longer than protocol allowed. For the couple, there was no celebration. The trap systems were reset, and the equipment stripped from the fallen soldiers. Every piece of armor, every weapon, every data core was cataloged. The Empire would have more to send. This was merely the opening probe. They knew it because they would have done the same. On the following rotation, the blockade began. Imperial ships slid into high orbit, forming a loose net around the planet. The move was not meant to capture, but to isolate. Shuttles were intercepted, signal bursts jammed. Civilian craft were turned away under threat of destruction. Supply routes vanished overnight. To the Empire, isolation was a first step in eroding resistance. To the couple, it was a declaration. The Empire underestimated how much could be done from beneath the surface. The couple maintained a network of hardened tunnels beneath the outpost, remnants of old military engineering adapted for civilian life. These became war rooms again, with maps projected on curved walls and shelves lined with equipment once thought retired. The woman calibrated a sniper platform to account for the planet's high winds. The man assembled a kinetic launcher from spare atmospheric regulator components. Every movement was deliberate, precise. In orbit, the Empire prepared for a demonstration strike. Not a full bombardment, yet, but enough to show the futility of resistance. The command ship's fire control systems plotted coordinates across the outpost surface. The order came in clip binary. Adjust yield to disable structures. Avoid total vaporization. The first blast struck without warning, turning an auxiliary power station into a column of molten debris. The shock wave rippled through the cliffs, but the couple remained deep underground, systems still functional. The second strike was aimed at the comm array. This time, a shielded turret rose from the cliffside and released a countermeasure round, detonating the plasma bolt midair. The Empire recalculated, adjusted fire patterns, and struck again. Each time, the couple adapted faster than the orbiting ships could update targeting solutions. In the Empire's tactical logs, the operation was classified as ongoing, not yet failed. But within the sealed corridors of the couple's outpost, the engagement had already begun in earnest. Each intercepted strike gave them more data. Each destroyed probe added to their resource stockpile. Somewhere in the depth of the tunnels, the hum of fabricators began producing new weapons, ones designed for an enemy that thought it had the upper hand. The Empire still believed it was hunting prey. In truth, it had stepped into the kill zone. The numbers had begun to move again, and history had shown that once the count started climbing, it didn't stop until the field was empty. The bombardment continued in calculated intervals, a rhythm of destruction meant to break patience rather than walls. The Empire's fleet held steady in orbit, shifting positions only to adjust firing angles, cycling their ships in precise formation. On the surface, the couple moved through the underground complex like shadows, avoiding the brief tremors of near-miss impacts. The data streams from each intercepted shot were logged, analyzed, and compared, their fire control algorithms mapped in near real time. They weren't surviving the assault. They were reading it. When the bombardment paused, the change in cadence was immediate. Silence in orbit rarely meant mercy. In the seconds of stillness, the couple read the shift in strategy. The next phase wasn't about destruction from a distance. It was about sending more bodies to the surface. The landing craft dropped through the clouds in staggered waves, hull plating glowing from controlled atmospheric reentry. The Empire's elite deployment squads moved with flawless synchronization, each unit carrying armor tuned for the environment, weapons calibrated for high wind and low visibility. They advanced on the cliffs in disciplined lines, unaware that the ground beneath them had been prepared months in advance. Charges hidden in fissures exploded in precise sequence, throwing debris in controlled arcs designed not just to kill, but to disrupt formation. Sniper fire cracked through the wind, not aimed at center mass, but at exposed joints and sensor arrays. Within seconds, the Empire's perfect advance dissolved into clusters of soldiers scrambling for cover that didn't exist. In the war rooms aboard the command ship, kill confirmations rolled in, not from their own forces, but against them. The couple's counterattack wasn't wild or reactive. It was surgical. Every loss was intentional. The Empire had expected desperation. They were facing calculation. The resistance grew bolder with each engagement. Supply drones sent by sympathetic human outposts bypassed the blockade using old smuggler routes, dropping crates in remote locations across the plain. The couple retrieved them methodically, adding fresh power cells, shield modulators, and ammunition to their growing stockpile. The Empire intercepted some of the deliveries, but never enough to cripple operations. For every drone they shot down, 2 more slipped past their net. Rumors spread beyond the blockade. Merchant crews in neutral zones spoke a human, couple holding out against an entire fleet. Pirate channels whispered about the kill counts being recorded. some claiming they were exaggerated, others insisting they were understated. In world the Empire thought loyal, taverns and barracks filled with quiet admiration for the Defiance. The couple's existence had become more than a military threat. It was becoming a story. The Empire tightened its grip. Assassination squads were dispatched under stealth protocols, equipped with adaptive camouflage and no-field generators. They landed miles from the outpost, moving in silence through the ravines. The couple didn't wait to be found. Seismic sensors picked up their approach before the assassins closed within 2 kilometers. Mines triggered in layered rings, forcing the squads to break stealth to survive. Once visible, they were eliminated with precision strikes, their no-fields and gear stripped for study. The couple's technological arsenal began to change. Alien optics integrated into human rifles. Imperial drone corps reprogrammed to map patrol routes of their own ships. A captured shield emitter inverted and tuned to overload enemy armor systems. Every piece of equipment taken from the Empire was turned against it, improved, and deployed. From orbit, the Empire adjusted its strategy again. Ground deployments had failed to secure the target, and psychological intimidation through destruction had only hardened resistance. The new directive was to make the couple's continued survival costly, not in soldiers, but in the people who supported them. Shuttles intercepted nearby settlements, rounding up human civilians and broadcasting their captivity on encrypted channels the couple was certain to intercept. The message was unspoken but clear: surrender or watch them die. The couple responded with an operation the Empire didn't predict. In a coordinated strike across 3 landing zones, they hit every holding site simultaneously. Decoy signals disguised their actual approach, drawing Imperial defenses to false coordinates. By the time the Empire realized the deception, the captives were gone, and every local commander involved in the operation was dead. Kill count spiked. In the following rotations, the Empire increased its troop deployments by nearly 40%. Fleet reinforcements entered orbit. More destroyers, more carriers, more shuttles, each one adding to the blockade, each one a target. The couple didn't slow. Instead, they began targeting the blockade itself. The first ship to fall was a light frigate. It didn't burn under sustained attack or collapse from heavy ordnance. It disappeared after a single flash, vanishing from sensors mid-patrol. Later analysis in Imperial Command revealed it had been infiltrated during a scheduled atmospheric pass. Internal sabotage destroyed its core, leaving it dead in space before gravity pulled it into the planet's thin upper atmosphere. The second was a corvette tasked with supply distribution between blockade ships. It suffered a cascade failure in its navigation array after a random micrometeor collision. Footage retrieved later showed the impact was no accident. It was a guided kinetic round fire from the surface with impossible timing. The Empire's frustration mounted. They had committed more resources to the elimination of 2 soldiers than to entire campaigns against organized military powers. And yet, each failed attempt didn't weaken the couple. It armed them. Every loss the Empire suffered increased the legends circulating through the galaxy. Neutral systems began quietly refusing to aid Imperial fleets, citing logistical concerns. Rebel cells across multiple sectors launched attacks timed to coincide with the couple's engagements, forcing the Empire to split its focus. What had begun as an isolated elimination order had grown into a sector-wide instability problem. On the surface, the couple fortified further. The tunnels became layered strong points. Automated turrets patrolled entry points. Camouflage emplacements lined distant ridges. The barren plain surrounding the outpost transformed into a battlefield the Empire couldn't map without losing more soldiers. One engagement, in particular, marked a turning point. An Imperial dropship descended with heavy armor support, deploying mechanized walkers to breach the cliffs. The walkers advanced through suppressive fire, absorbing impacts that would have destroyed lesser machines. The couple didn't engage them directly. Instead, they rerouted power from their fabricators into an old mining laser, concealed it beneath a layer of rock, and fired to the side of the canyon wall. The concentrated beam sheared through all 3 walkers in under 10 seconds. The dropship, attempting to retreat, was struck by a missile built from scavenged warhead fragments. The wreckage burned for hours, visible from orbit. The kill counts recorded from that single engagement surpassed the total casualties the Empire had suffered in any battle in that sector for decades. It was no longer possible for Imperial propaganda to hide the truth. The blockade's formation shifted into a pattern designed only for one outcome: total planetary saturation. From the surface, the sky filled with metallic silhouettes blotting out the light, layered ranks of destroyers, carriers, and assault platforms arranged in perfect intervals. Every ship ran at full combat readiness, their weapon capacitors charged, launch bays loaded, and fire control networks synchronized with command ship's targeting grid. The couple watched through a slit in the rock, magnification optics, showing the coordinated ballet of war machines preparing for an execution. This was no intimidation maneuver. The Empire had chosen annihilation. The calculations were clear. Nothing living would survive the first hour. They didn't move to flee. There was nowhere to run, and retreat was not the objective. Instead, they moved through the tunnels in complete silence, each motion a rehearsed step in a plan that had taken shape long before this fleet assembled. The weapons caches were already open, racks lined with modified alien rifles, explosive charges sealed in pressure-proof containers, and EMP warheads primed for launch. The scavenged technology taken from previous battles was no longer just equipment. It was the architecture of their counterstrike. When the Empire's countdown began, the couple's own systems came online. Atmospheric sensors detected the energy spikes from hundreds of weapons charging in unison. Above the clouds, the first beams lanced downward, cutting through the air with the heat of controlled stars. They struck rock and soil, tearing gouges into the surface where the outpost had once stood. But those coordinates were empty. The couple had vacated them hours before, drawing the Empire's attention toward a dead location while they maneuvered beneath cover to a launch site hidden far from the cliffs. The second wave of orbital fire triggered the next stage. From concealed points in the upper atmosphere, dozens of jagged hull fragments, scavenged from previous wrecks and fitted with makeshift thrusters, ignited and hurtled toward the fleet. The Empire's point defense systems tracked them instantly, shredding some of dust, but others slipped through gaps in the net. Those that struck hull plating delivered more than kinetic damage. They carried virus cores ripped from captured drones, spreading into the fleet's internal networks. The Empire's fire control systems began to desynchronize. A fraction of a second's delay in targeting meant little in open space. But here, with a planet's surface as a target, it was enough to cause misaligned firing arcs. Shots meant for hardened strongpoints vaporized empty planes. Energy bolts intended for orbital suppression grazed friendly ships. The perfection of the Empire's formation cracked. On the surface, the couple moved to Phase 2. The launchers hidden in dried riverbeds roared to life, sending kinetic rounds into low orbit. They weren't targeting ships directly. They were aiming at the fragile communications relays strung between the fleet's tiers. Each destroyed relay deepened the isolation between fleet segments. The command ship attempted to reassert control, but its encrypted signals met interference from jamming fields powered by inverted shield emitters the couple had re-engineered. Boarding was never part of the Empire's expected threat profile. Their ships were designed to repel organized fleet assaults, not infiltration by two soldiers. But the couple had mapped every patrol pattern, every docking cycle, and every vulnerability in the blockade over weeks of observation. In the confusion, a captured shuttle, its transponder broadcasting Imperial codes, ascended from the surface. It docked with a mid-tier destroyer before the Empire's identification protocols could update. By the time the alert was raised, they were inside. The destroyer's corridors were cold and sterile, crew movements disciplined but now frantic under partial comms blackout. The couple moved with mechanical precision, cutting down guards without wasted shots, planting charges in structural choke points, and disabling power conduits feeding the ship's defensive grid. Minutes after they boarded, the destroyer's reactor entered critical instability. They were gone before the explosion lit the blockade from within. The blast tore through blockade's formation, the shockwave forcing nearby ships to break ranks. The couple exploited the breach, launching toward the command ship under the cover of the chaos. Fighter escorts scrambled, but their targeting arrays were still compromised. Two reached the shuttle, and both fell to burst from modified alien cannons welded into the shuttle's frame. The command ship's docking bay never saw them coming. They entered in the wake of a supply craft, landing hard enough to deform the bay floor. Internal alarms blared, and armored squads converged. The couple fought through them without pause, their movements as much instinct as training. Grenades rolled into defensive formations, rifles barked in short, precise bursts, and every shot found a vital target. The heart of the command ship was a chamber of glass and steel, dominated by the fire control core, a sphere of humming energy lines that connected the entire fleet's targeting systems. The couple planted charges at its base. Time to detonate with the ship's next volley. When the core blew, the blockade's coordinated assault ended in a cascade of failure. Ships fired out of sync, missed their targets entirely, or ceased firing altogether to prevent striking their own. The Empire's fleet was no longer an execution squad. It was a scattering mass of isolated warships under planetary counterattack. The couple rode the chaos back to the surface, their shuttle skimming through burning debris and the falling wreckage of two carriers that had collided during the disruption. From the ground, the battle became a reversal. Surface-based artillery, dormant until now, erupted with fire. Javelin missiles streaked upward, striking weakened hulls. Ground drones swarmed toward crash sites, dismantling what remained for salvage before the Empire could reclaim it. Every ship that fell became another resource pool. The kill count spiked beyond anything the Empire's analysts had ever recorded for a single planetary defense. The numbers fed into encrypted human networks, spread into every corner of space that still listened. For rebels, it was proof of possibility. For loyalists, it was a seed of doubt. For the Empire, it was a wound too public to cauterize. The decision to withdraw came not from strategy but from necessity. The fleet's losses had passed the threshold where maintaining the blockade was worth the risk of complete annihilation. One by one, ships broke orbit, retreating towards safer systems. The command ship, limping from internal damage, jumped to faster-than-light transit without waiting for the rest.